I thought I'd start off by saying that, first of all, it's great to have you guys here. And the intent behind this was to talk a little bit about what these leaders have faced as they have driven change in their organizations. And so I'll ask them to introduce themselves. Why don't we just go first down the line here?
Sure. I'm Manesh Patel, CIO at Sanmina Corporation. Sanmina is a large electronics manufacturing company, 45,000 employees around the world. And I've been there 15 years, so it's a great journey.
Fantastic. Welcome. Mike?
Hi everyone, Mike Girisi. I'm the CIO at Tory Burch. Tory Burch is a 9.5-year-old multi-channel retailer of female apparel, clothing, and shoe products. We are located in New York City. We distribute our products in 41 countries, and I've been with the company for 2.5 years, and it's absolutely a journey for sure. Lots and lots of change and
great product.
Amazing opportunity.
I don't know yours as well.
Including the hip bag, right?
Yeah,
the new hip bag.
All kinds of hip bags.
Yes.
Just the new bags and
hip bags.
You know, it's interesting. Our business is really 3 major categories under the one brand name. We only have a brand, so it creates lots of opportunities and challenges from a scale and efficiency perspective. They all operate a little bit differently.
And Amit had talked about the momentum that we're building in the enterprise, et cetera. We've definitely seen a recent uptick in awareness about Google's offerings for work, for the enterprise. There was not always, but in the last decade there's been a lot of awareness about Google. And now large companies, as evidenced by your presence here, both customers and prospects, as well as the fantastic roster that we showed, are seriously considering an alternative. So Amit, what do you think is the reason behind this momentum building in terms of a consideration of an alternative?
What we're trying to do is this pure, high-scale, global, device-agnostic computing platform and try and make it available as close to free as possible. That's what we're trying to do. And the idea of that is it requires skills in data center building and management, in large networks, high-scale multi-tenancy, simplicity in design and front end, so that it works on a device of your choice. Those are the skills you have to build to create that. And we come at it with no legacy. There's nothing, right? We don't have to worry about version X working on Y plus Z, the combination, et cetera. And I saw this play out at Oracle when we had purchased, I was on the team which purchased Siebel, and we were trying to compete with Salesforce. And like the combination of things you have to do and architectures and different things you have to do, it's just mind-numbingly complex. And so what we actually do is fundamentally different, even though it's called the same. And the reason why, and I'm sure they have enough money and skills to get there, but they have a business model and legacy cost and lack of skill set to build these large-scale systems that it'll take them a long time to figure out, honestly. And I hope they do, because it'll be great for competition and like invite that. But honestly, for a pure and proven cloud model that's device agnostic, large-scale multi-tenant, which continues, the product gets better every day, just with the refresh of a browser, it costs virtually nothing. That's what we're doing.
Great. So Manesh, you and I, a few months ago, we got together for lunch.
Sure.
And we talked a little bit about, you know, I hadn't been aware of your history. You've been with Google Enterprise longer than I have, right? And so what I'd love to hear from you is a little bit about, you know, what were your considerations in driving Google Enterprise into your business? What were your key business drivers, and how you managed to sell that change and get it to flourish so effectively? And you know, maybe you could share a little bit about what you managed to achieve
Sure.
with the introduction as well.
So we transitioned to Google Apps about 4 years ago. December of 2009, we completed our transition. But 18 months before that, we actually kicked off a little bit of a skunkworks project to really look at what other opportunities we had to improve our IT services model. the previous 5-6 years, we'd done a lot of work in terms of single instance of our ERP system and a lot of the standard things that most of us do in terms of improving the service capabilities, reducing costs, and all of that. So we really had a little bit of an innovative set of people. We kicked around the idea of looking at messaging. And out of that effort, over a period of almost a year, as we went through the different review processes, we came to the conclusion that Google Apps was going to be a real contender for our messaging environment. So we were on Exchange and Outlook, and it was working fine. It wasn't broken. But we really saw an opportunity that, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, we were going to be on a completely different place with Google versus the existing solution. And we kicked off an implementation process. We went through increasingly large pilots. And October of 2009, we were ready to go with a global rollout. We'd completed just the largest pilot was a 2,000 person conversion in our Guadalajara campus. That was successful. We pulled the trigger on the global rollout, and we moved the rest of the 15,000 employees by December. So that was a significant change for the company. I spent a lot of time with our executives on just talking through what we were doing, why we were doing it. Talked a lot about security back then. Cloud was very new, if most of us remember that. Security was really a big question, and really made the case for the fact that even though we had good security, Google's security was better. And what I saw moving forward was the security landscape was going to get more complex, and we're seeing that today. And frankly, I think the security environment within most enterprises today is more challenging than it was back then. So we made the transition, and we focused on messaging, but we've opened it up to all of the apps. So it's been a very positive experience for us.
And we addressed in that conversation what you had to face. Even today, people question, is Google Enterprise ready?
Absolutely.
And you had a very interesting response to that when I asked you how you contended with that 4 years ago.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what I said again.
It was really good. Yeah.
But no, we had, in fact, within my IT organization, I had pushback, and we very quickly got to the point because we had folks who were invested a lot of their career in supporting the existing architectures, and I had to really make a clean decision to say, look, we're moving forward. We're going to transition as many of our internal staff as we can to the new environment and provide them the opportunities within the overall organization. But if there were people who just wanted to do the same old thing, then they were going to have to make that decision. And so we really had to draw that line, and it was the right thing to do. And you heard a little bit about it from Astro yesterday, and that's exactly what we did.
Fantastic. So Mike, you're now in an earlier part of this journey, right?
Yep.
You brought the team out, had a executive business center visit with us, and we got into a couple conversations about things. But what were the key drivers for you making this change?
Well, I think Amit touched on a number of them. We're such a young company with very little legacy, and we are a disruptive company. I mean, the fact that we exist was because Tori had this brilliant vision of creating this product base that was considered accessible luxury. So we were never going to compete against LVMH or Gucci or those brands, but we certainly weren't going to be the Gap either. And they're all great brands, and they all serve a certain purpose. We found a niche that exists through authentic and intimate relationships, and we grew the business through social. I mean, quite honestly, we have a very productive Facebook site, and that produces commerce, and I would say 25% of our online purchases come from a mobile device today, and we support both platforms. We're completely device agnostic. So when we think about IT within our organization, it can't be a disabler to people collaborating and effectively executing against the processes that we're trying to support. And we are a fashion-led, new brand type company. The fact is our basics business is not a large part of what we do. So when you think about a white t-shirt, well, I imagine most of the gentlemen in this room have a white t-shirt. That's a basic product that you can create scale and produce large volumes at a very inexpensive price. When you're designing designing something 12 different ways, 12 times a year, and you have to find a way to make that relevant and make sure it's in season, it requires tremendous collaboration across the company and throughout the supply chain. Our current tool set simply doesn't enable that. And it's actually a very simple decision. If we want to be faster, focused on the customer, make sure our customer feels really good about what we're doing, we have to get things out of the way that create friction around that process so we can focus on what's most important, which is ultimately delivering a great customer experience. The Google Enterprise platform enables that in so many ways that our current platform doesn't. So we are very young in our journey, and we're actually starting with our design process in terms of bringing people online and helping educate them from a change perspective what's possible. And so far, the feedback has been amazing, and people are excited, and I'm really, really confident that this is going to become viral, just like our business did in a sense. And we'll go through the organization with being adopted and being demanded versus IT selling it, if you will.
What were some of the considerations that you went through to decide whether or not Google was the right partner?
Well, I think in terms of what we value from a core principle perspective, culturally, there was tremendous alignment. In terms of practical business matters, the IT group does not want to be focused on providing data center services. We don't want to be involved with patching and maintaining. If I have to have one more conversation around how many servers haven't been patched and why they haven't been patched and how much time it takes, it's such an unbelievable waste of time. And I just don't want to be focused on that. My job and our job is to help lead a transformation from a company that has no legacy and doesn't really quite know what it wants to be yet. So when you think about some of the conversations that we get involved in, it's unbelievably dynamic. And I've actually gotten amazing wardrobe tips. I do dress better now, but I'm not sure that works for everybody. But
Do you have all the colors?
I do, and it's all representative of my emotive capability. But the truth is that if I'm going to be successful, my team is going to be successful, we have to get out of the way and enable people to move fast and quick and effectively around things like security and control and disaster recovery. I just don't want to have to spend cycles on that. And our business is growing so fast, and if we can enable our design team and Tori and others to really focus on what's most important, the upside potential is massive.
Thanks. Similarly, Manish, what did you decide? What did you have to go through? You talked about bringing cloud into Sanmina.
Absolutely.
But what did you have to go through to get people on board with A, the concept in general, and B, that we were the right partner to support you?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time working with Google, talking to our management team, and really looking at what made sense. But when it came down to it, we really felt that even though the current system wasn't broken, we needed to move we saw the writing on the wall. Our industry is very, very low margin industry. We needed to get to a place where we were more flexible, more agile. And you've heard it from Amit earlier today and from John Hagel yesterday, as well as Salim. Disruption is coming, and we could see that coming in our industry. And we're still in that process. And all of us here are seeing that, or will see that at some point. So change is not an option. And so my philosophy in terms of managing the IT organization is really about preparing not only the IT organization and our infrastructure, but preparing our enterprise for that change and making us more agile, more flexible, so when that change happens or we're trying to drive change, we're in a much better position to do that. And really felt Google was even back then, Google was always seen as a very innovative partner. We wanted to partner with somebody who had that level of innovation, and we're glad we did.
Thank you. Glad you did too.
Yeah.
So Amit, you're hearing these customers talking about it. You look out across the room.
Makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm happy when you're happy. All right. Really simple. Look at that. I totally got the instruction wrong. It's not that he's not fun. There are just no facts about him. That was it. But the thing I really love about him most is he's forgiving. Now, we look around the room. We see media. We see CPG. We see hospitality. We see contract manufacturing. We see lifestyle. A lot of different industries. As you look toward the fact that there is undoubtedly momentum building, Do you see the growth and momentum building in particular areas? Do you see it coming in the forms of greater adoption of more of our products by the existing customers? What's kind of your idea about where that momentum's building?
My product team yesterday probably gave you some sort of insight on what we're working on. So I asked this question from CTOs, like, tell me your average utilization, what's the plan, etc. By the way, the informal number is like 28% is the average utilization of a data center, etc. So this is massive built up capacity that you've built for surge workloads. And we see those moving in some sort of collaborative fashion with the existing enterprise to public cloud. And we're building frenetically, like the infrastructure externalization that I was talking about with the cloud platform, to have that be like a core part of the building blocks alongside Google Apps as one of the service layers. See that being like a really important trend that I know we're investing tons of energy, et cetera, on. And then on the front end, the access platforms, I think we've got Chrome and Chromebooks there where it can provide an alternative layer to you to access information. We're not all the way there on Android. The first thing we've done is for education, where Android tablets with just touch provisioning through simple global content sharing can come right through the Google Play Store in a private channel. We've already announced it, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But being able to provision all of that, those are the 2 or 3 technology trends I would call for. As far as the segment question, it's pretty broad. I mean, I really wouldn't have known Bancorp would have, like, they're in the audience, a finance company, or BBVA, or we got the largest bank in Thailand. I just didn't envision them going this quickly, to the cloud as their core computing platform. And so, we just, Tom will be happy about this, but we agreed to sign HIPAA BAA recently. It's not totally public, but sort of out there.
Kind of is now.
I guess. It took us a lot of work to get there. So healthcare is like so much inefficiency in healthcare, and I think we did it just so that we can unlock technology innovation, because they were sort of locked out of our ecosystem because we didn't do certain things in compliance. I think those laggard industries are actually would be so benefited by the products. And then the ones that are accelerating are just accelerating at a breakneck pace. Retail, hospitality, airlines, manufacturing, especially for disenfranchised workers that never had an email account, never had collaboration, and so on. Those are the top industries that are adopting, and the margins are really low there. So they're like, not only do I get a better product that gives me more on any device, but I also save money. So it's like, let's get going on this thing. But even, frankly, the laggard companies, laggard industries, because of regulation, not laggard as in their ideas, are moving. And more, we're seeing a shift of mix away from the US, where people are coming on board to the cloud for the first time on a device. So they never lived in the old world. They never had a big PC infrastructure, et cetera. And so they're bypassing that computing platform directly to be a device-centric, cloud-based platform. So those are some of the key things I see.
Any questions from the audience at this point, or just Greg?
I wanted to thank you for the thought leadership and the discussion.
Hang on, there's a microphone coming for you.
So just repeating, just thank you for the thought leadership, Amit, and the discussion. There's one small thing I just have to say as from being from HBO is HBO has 90 million global subscribers. Netflix has not surpassed us.
So why was that wasn't the
domestic?
Oh, domestic. Yeah. Sorry.
So,
my apologies.
thank you.
Yes.
Big data.
Yeah.
The truth needs to be heard.
Yes.
Excellent. Bass.
So Mike, you got to post some cool stuff for us before we go home.
Wait, is that working?
I need to tell my wife to press her with something cool about shoes, so that's one.
Okay.
Amit, the question is, we don't want to, coexistence has become pretty critical for us. I think so, especially if you look at Hangout and video, and we talked about it, I can't expect my customers to all use Link or Skype or Hangout. So it's one thing for me to go to Google, but I still need to coexist with in an ecosystem. So I would strongly advise you guys to consider that. I know it's a difficult problem, and that's what Google is good at, is I don't want to think about how to do a video. I also don't want to think about sending a document over to somebody and then finding out that the formatting between Word and
Yeah.
So those kind of things really complicate.
Yeah.
There's no enterprise anymore.
Yeah. So let me address that. Let me tell you what's coming. I don't know. Can I
Yeah.
do that? What?
We can.
You
do
know,
that.
make coexistence easy, and like make sure that the going back and forth with legacy formats like Office and so on can work. And so we're working on both of those problems. So on video, we have a collaboration that's still nascent with Cisco and others, and software bridges that allow Hangouts to be surfaced, and like there'll be other ISVs, large ISVs, that based on their integration with the identity layer can say, oh, I want to just do video, and they might be in the context of a transaction, like a workflow transaction, and you'd be able to do that. Yeah, we're not there. It'll take a couple of quarters to land that, but we're working pretty hard. The legacy format compatibility problem is, we've been working on it for years. Needs to get better. There's some real challenges. That's why we bought QuickOffice. QuickOffice has superior translation technology, which is going into docs, so that round trip that you get when you open up a Word file, if you look at 6 months ago to today, it's like night and day, right? The formatting comes over, the bullet numbers and all that, it works, but it's not there. It's not there on sheets, and it's not there on slides. Now, if you want to start a brand new thing, it works great, but the legacy back and forth, we completely get it. We have a series of 2,000 tests we run every week on the products, and we look both human, like algorithmically, and machine, and like humans look at it and say, people, to look at it, to say like, is it getting better? And there's like work going on both on the back end of docs as well as the front end layer to make it better. Now, what we also trying to do though is we're not trying to get to 100%. I've been very clear about that many times. We're not going to give you that beveled edge that can be like animated in a separate, like that's not us. That's the problem with software, actually, that feature. That the toolbar on top of it's just terrible. Like, why would you put all that? You need to take complexity away. That's the way it'll work on every device. So because that's designed for a certain experience, it was great for that, right? But when you start to move around, it's not going to work. And so you have to have the right balance that we're trying to strike, but we are maniacally focused on making that experience better.
I believe that was a comment also posed to us by some of the analysts out there. They want to see that better interaction in the ecosystem. Ecosystem, is that an important topic for all of you out there? So maybe one of you guys could handle that. How did you address, what would you like to see from the ecosystem as customers?
Do you want to take it?
Mike,
I
go
can-
for it.
Sure. Well, from
Best servers? No, I don't think you need those anymore.
No, we're okay there. Actually, what would really be beneficial is from a compliance and regulatory perspective
Yeah.
in some parts of the software. Like, there's just certain things that we have to be able to do. And when we start to get in trouble with our legal group is when information is not being managed in a way that is compliant
Yeah.
with our internal policies. And
Yeah.
so we come up with creative ways to work around it, but it would be ideal if it was built in
Yeah.
natively to the software.
Yeah, that's an area we've thought a lot about, which is trust. We have a trust team, both product and engineering team, which then focuses on the compliance layers, but also the auditability layers. So you can say who accessed what piece of data where. See, and we've instrumented all of that at Google. Like every piece of data access is logged, even if you're trying to fix someone's Gmail, like why? So and there's back-end policies and procedures, because we have a lot of data, consumer data, enterprise data, and so on. Being able to externalize some of that and giving you tools that says, oh, who shared a post externally in Google Plus, that kind of thing, because we're gonna, have open systems.
Right.
Now, the confidence in email is strong enough where nobody tests that anymore. Like,
Right.
who did you send an email to would be a really weird question, right? But people still want some control over who posted on Google Plus.
Right.
We fully get it. We fully recognize it. Our strategy till now has been an ecosystem and API strategy. Right. So like CloudLock and a couple others, FlashPanel, they provide that visibility and analytics. So it allows you to say, oh, let me just get a handle on it and use that as change management. We are thinking about how to deepen and harden those APIs so you can build your own, like whatever type of controls you'd like on the platform that we've built. And then trying to build more of that in our core capability so that you don't have to go to an expensive sort of third-party type of solution. It's beyond a certain point, right? But again, there we want to give you X level of stuff, give you APIs so you can build on top of that, and then outside of that, then that's pretty granular, and you should go to a third-party ecosystem type of provider there.
Yeah, I've just got 2 comments on that. I mean, first of all, the management side is really, the enterprise management side is something that's in development. A lot of work's gone into that, but still more work needs to be done. And so we have our employees sharing documents internally and externally, and every now and then somebody's going to make a mistake, or somebody's going to do something that doesn't make sense, and we'd want to know about that. So just and that's the flip side of opening it up and giving empowering your employees, is sometimes they end up doing something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The second piece is, my sense is the ecosystem's getting to the point where it's ahead of where we are. We're a relatively conservative company, and we're still testing Hangouts to just look at where does it make sense to roll it out and how to open it up. Google Plus is not quite there for us from a cultural standpoint. We want to get our management and employees to the point where they understand what this is and some level of guidance on how to use it effectively before we roll it out. So my sense is the ecosystem's now getting ahead of us, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's always good to have choices and
Yeah.
a comprehensive solution set.
Yeah.
Well, to that point, we learned yesterday in the exercise that Frederick and his team took us through that one of the most important things is to make sure that there's relevance and appreciable value proposition on the part of a partner. So Manesh, maybe you could talk to the team a little bit about how you determine what that relevance is as you explore, the greater adoption or the potential areas for value add in your organization. You've got 45,000 people in your company, right?
Absolutely. So, what we've seen is a lot of the innovation is coming from our employees. So as they've figured out how to leverage the different services and capabilities, and in fact, from an IT standpoint, we're learning from our employees, and so we have employees who need to work across time zones, across distance, and they're actually leveraging the tools very well, whether it's creating sites for a project and literally take minutes to create a site and get people engaged and working on that, to we're piloting video, and we're still at the early stages, but we're very excited about video. And one of the traditional things we've seen, and most IT organizations have seen, is video, potentially the ROI is in travel cost reduction. Well, to me, that's a complete misnomer. The real value of video is connecting people, and people across the world, and connecting them in ways that you can't do over a conference call or through email or other ways. And so we're really excited about Hangouts. But my sense is we're still on the early stages of that innovation cycle within our employee base, and we're pretty excited about it.
So having been through the process, you're in it for 4 years now.
Yeah.
Is there any advice you'd give the other CIOs and the team about how to approach it?
Yeah, I think every enterprise is different, but we took a very methodical look at the solution. Now, my sense is we've come a long way in the last 4 years, where it's almost, if I was looking at it today, it's almost a slam dunk to me. It's almost a no-brainer to say.
What do you mean almost?
No, as I said, every enterprise is different. You've got to look at where you're at, and but my sense is it's a lot easier to do it today. And even when we did it, it was a very smooth transition. I've done a lot of big migrations over the years, and I have a lot of scars to show for it. But this one was actually very smooth. Email, for those of you, actually all of you are senior IT folks, but email is mission critical, right?
Absolutely.
If email goes down, I get calls within minutes. If ERP goes down, it may be an hour or two, right? So email is mission critical. So we were able to switch 17,000 employees relatively quickly and smoothly, and it's even easier today.
You know, I'll tell you a quick story. So when Hurricane Sandy happened, those of you remember that in New York, most people, there were these, anyway, they thought that they had redundancy built into their networks, but they didn't. They realized that they were going to get like water and they're going to lose all their services, which they did. They had the 6-hour window to move 30,000 users across these 3 companies.
Right.
There's no, it's not, that's not
Yeah,
a
that
big
wasn't a
deal.
very fun experience,
Yeah.
Hurricane Sandy.
And so the point is that technology is not the barrier. The conversion tools aren't the barrier. The integration tools aren't the barrier. But the thing that is the element of change and anxiety and like how to land this thing so that it really works for you, because everyone's reality is a little bit different, right? Their culture is different and so on.
So, Mike, what about you? You're going through it right now,
We are.
right?
Yeah.
You've been through it, I guess, most recently in the current atmosphere. What are lessons learned would you share?
I mean, I think what Manish and I mean, it is about the culture of the company. Every culture and every organization is different, and we happen to have a very forward-thinking leadership team that is not afraid, if you will, to venture into things like cloud and getting into managed services, and is actually pretty comfortable. And the partner is the critical piece. Google and Tori have a strong relationship across multiple dimensions. So actually selling it into the business wasn't very hard. It was really more the technology team that had to bring along, and still am bringing them along, because it's to your point, email is absolutely mission critical. It's the only application that everybody uses all the time, or some sort of collaboration services. And it is true. SAP can go down for 3 hours, and it's like, oh, did you know SAP was down? I'm like, I really didn't know that. Like, oh, good. But in the meantime, if email's down, it's an immediate notification. And I think what's most important is understanding the context and the audience that you're talking to, and how we talk to each department in our organization is a little bit different. We have a common message around what our mission and vision is in terms of an IT organization as a strategic enabler for our business, but we tailor it for each group, because each group processes and digests it a little bit differently. And if you don't take the time to really understand who the people are and how you're communicating to them, then quite frankly, they're not going to hear you. All they hear is a bunch of, it's like the adult speech on the old Snoopy cartoons. It's just a bunch of noise, and they don't get it. And your job, our job, is to make sure they do. So you can't just brush over it and say, well, I guess I'll get to it if I have to. You have to focus on the change management piece. That is, to me, it's the most critical piece. The technology just needs to do what it's supposed to, and quite frankly, if it doesn't, then I didn't do my job properly. But how we manage and land the change, that is the differentiating factor.
Well, you were quite emphatic about having to find the change. I'd put the question to anybody on the panel or anybody in the audience. What is it that drives you to change?
I mean, from our perspective, the competition is fierce, and there's lots of disruptive technologies and organizations out there. If we don't keep evolving, quite frankly, we're going to die as a business. I mean, the only reason we exist is because we continue to excite people with something new and differentiating. So if we don't keep changing and bringing people into the ecosystem, I loved what, I forget, Salim was talking about, the whole crowdsourcing and bringing people into the organization from an external point of view to get perspective on what people want. I mean, think about the power of that. If you can actually harness that and enable, it's amazing. You can't go out and hire 25,000 people and have them work for you like that, but you can certainly engage them. If you engage them as passionate members of your brand, so we do things like that. And we think about how can we continue to evolve as a business. I think my job has changed 4 times. When I started, I was responsible for supply chain and IT. I didn't know I had supply chain responsibility until the day that I started, and I found out the distribution system didn't work. So all of a sudden, it was now our responsibility to fix it. But it continues to change, and it will change. And you have to embrace it. You got to love it. It's the passion of what we do, right? We're supposed to be technology leaders. If you want something routine and stale, it's the wrong industry to be in.
Manish.
Yeah, and I touched on it earlier, but the scale of change that we're all going to see and the speed of that change is really going to. There are companies who are going to be positioning themselves in terms of agility and preparing for that. So when that change happens, or they want to initiate that change, they're going to be ready. Because when that change happens, it's too late, right? If you can't go make yourself more flexible and agile in a short period of time. So just preparing for that, enabling our employees to prepare for that, driving innovation, that's really what's driving me. You know, most of us have email, and it's really the equivalent of keeping the trains going, right? As Astro said yesterday, you just keep maintaining it, patching it, and it runs, right? So going away from that model to really leveraging the capabilities we have with all of the collaboration suite, to me, that's extremely powerful, and it's really positioning us for the future. I could sit back and say, look, it's not broken, let's leave it. And you know, chances are nothing's going to happen for a few years, but at some point, we're going to start hitting some walls, and then it's going to be too late. So it's really that forward-thinking view of the world that I propose.
Any questions out there? Because I've still got plenty. So let me just say, I'm hearing from you and from others with whom I've spoken over the course of the event, change is out there. It's a driver, right, Jean-Paul? It's a driver, and we have to step up to it. And many of these leaders, as you just said, if it's not broken, you don't have to fix it. But then you're not going to find yourself in a good spot in the future. So you're looking to us as a partner to be with you there, and you all are looking for us to give some indication to make sure there's directional alignment. There were some answers given yesterday where the feedback I got was that they lacked empathy for this plight or the situation of the customer, and I think we cleared all that up, you know, with the respondents. But Amit, you've been in the industry quarter century, right? Like you said, you've learned a lot of stuff from our past, and what can you tell the people here about how we're applying the lessons we've learned in a way that makes sure we don't become any other, just like any other vendor?
You mean Google?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. To be different and
Yeah.
yet be uniquely Google.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Right. While taking their needs in mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think sort of you end up becoming the culture that you live in, frankly. And the culture around speed and innovation and small teams and 20% time and do the right thing and like build for the long term and scale in everything you do and beauty and simplicity. I mean, these are the principles. They're not written anywhere. I think they were in the founder's letter maybe. But other than that, they're like, that's what we care about. And making sure you have an amazing end user experience and the products get better every day. Every day there's like just great launches and so on. And as long as that culture stays strong, I actually don't have any doubt that we can keep that going. It's when you start to worry about other things like how are you going to monetize this or that, or you start to start to not care about the user. That's when actually things go off the rails. And we have an incredibly strong product-centric culture about innovation and speed and mission zeal, right? Like you can like tell, like we're all super excited about doing what we're doing every day. And getting that is hard, but it also sort of lifts everybody up. So I personally am not worried about it in the near future that we'll somehow lose that. In fact, most of the time, like, we're just like paranoid and unhappy about ourselves. Like, okay, this didn't launch, or that didn't happen, or this is too slow, or we're terrible at this. And so it's a very self kind of, we need to get better at everything we do, frankly, to be honest, to be completely transparent with you. Like, we should have landed a lot of these things much earlier. And generally everybody feels that way. I mean, that's why maybe you're calling me grumpy, but
I don't remember grumpy.
it's like, I'm thankful that you guys are using this great platforms and stuff like that, but we have a long way to go. I mean, we're nowhere near executing at the pace we need to, or the depth that we need to, all the things. There's tons of stuff that we are working on now which will delight you, but it just needs to happen faster than it is. It's just too slow, and I worry a lot about that.
So let me make a comment, and I want to echo some of Amit's comments. I mean, where else do you hear a partner talk about beating themselves up about not delivering stuff fast enough and so on? I mean, I've never heard it before. And my experience with Google has been, we've worked very closely with the development teams. We've had requests, and you know, you don't always get a clear view. You're going to get this in 3 months or 6 months, but you know the path that they're on, and the pace at which new products are coming out, new solutions and fixes are coming in is tremendous. And I know that if I've got that issue, there's probably a whole bunch of other customers that have that same issue, and it's going to get prioritized. So we've had a very positive experience with the pace at which things are coming out. And
Thank you.
you know, as most IT leaders, we can't get things fixed fast enough, but it's pretty impressive with what you're doing.
Well, we're certainly driven to constantly improve. So to close it out, what would you like to see us work on and be better at, and what do you love about what we do for you?
I think I think the real challenge for most enterprises is changing their internal culture and taking their employees with them. It's not the technology, frankly. I don't really have too much to pick about the technology. You have greater tools on management and so on, but if there's things you can help us with, is how do you change culture? That's a tough one.
Okay. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're so early in the journey, and the technology for us is such a huge step up from where we were, so we're really happy. But the cultural piece, I think, you know, Mitt, what you just said in terms of why you're confident the company is going to stay true to its values, and you know, there's so much to learn about what drives success here, and I think so many organizations aren't able to embrace some of the processes and behaviors that you do. And in fact, when we were out, Carl, I came back and I did a complete briefing to our executive team on, you know, what we learned. Why is Google successful? What are some of the things? Now, obviously, I can't speak to it in great detail because I don't work there, but you can certainly derive some of the key differentiators. And you know, our culture is very similar to your culture. We constantly beat ourselves up. We're never good enough. It could always be better. And I think that desire to continuously evolve is one of the key factors to success. But you could help, certainly, in terms of sharing more broadly and transparently, you know, without giving away, you know, the secret sauce, if you will, right? In terms of how other companies can adopt it, because I do think the biggest inhibitor to a lot of these transformative activities it's always about the people. You know, and if you don't have the right people, well, then how do you help move on that? Like, how do you take steps to help identify where those potential blockers are, or folks who can't adopt are, and how do you work around it or work through it?
So I'm seeing a lot of nodding, but do I see +1s on that? Does anyone else echo that? Paddles. There you go. Excellent. Well, on that, I want to thank all of you. Thanks for joining us today, and appreciate it, Manesh, Mike, Amit.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for the-
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.